miles is very, very expensive. So at the end of the day, it goes back to the infrastructure need as well. So what did we do exactly? So I'm going to zoom in now for what we have done. So what we do is we have the project idea already set up. We have our literature review as well. So we brought in the stakeholders. In this case, we engaged the Nile Basin technical team. Some of you may know that in each country there are 2 to 3 technical representative in the Nile Basin, as well as we were lucky to have NBI was able to contract individual country consultants. So those country consultants were able to provide us the data what we were looking for. We were not able to get on all the 10 countries, but if I remember, we have 6 or 7 countries. We were able to have individual country consultant and get that data for us as well. And then what we did is we identify what are the different major population centers in the Nile countries. So we went through that iterative, how many of these needed. So the technical team and the Nile Basin technical team as well, the initiative, that's where. And then we did literature review as well as looking at what are the different techniques people have used in the developing countries throughout the world. And we move on. So the first thing what we did is we presented what kind of data is first available in the Nile Basin before we can start or prescribe a specific technique to forecast the demand. It doesn't matter if you use a very sophisticated method and the data doesn't support it. So our first, really, we spent quite a bit of time in coming up with this for both demand forecast and demand management. So the demand management part is that how does change in technology, current market penetration of different fixtures. For example, if you were to go to, let us say, to a department store and look at a toilet fixture, what type is there? So these are the things we do here. For example, people already have in their system. What we figure out is how does that inefficient fixtures change into the future. But for the Nile Basin case, that most of the new homes, new construction, people living in, having a pipe is really related to what is in the market. So we wanted to see that, and I will show you example of what are the different questions that we pulled from these different countries. So this is, for example, in different category of for general water conservation measure, we call them DM for demand management, and then the demand forecast. We come up with different question, percentage of water, their sources, even if this utility has any incentive for using that, or the use of rainwater, gray water, water loss program if there exists. So we created a lot of questions. I don't want to go through all of them, but we did create this in terms of, for example, what type of toilet fixtures are available currently. Is that 19 liters, 13 liters, whatever the market? What's the market? Because later on we want to tie it back. Not only forecasting into the future the demand, but with technology, with efficiency, what could be a saving and what could be, how much water we need given this technology advancement, washing machine and so on. So we created a number of questions on that as well. As you can see, I will just go through it. For example, unaccounted water. This is very important, by the way. Most of you know that in our urban water demand or the production, that there is significant amount of unaccounted water. People, they call it loss, but to be technical, we call it non-revenue water. So non-revenue water is what is produced at the facility, treatment plant, for example, and what you deliver at the retailer or the customers. So in between, there is loss because of break-in or a bad connection, whatever. There is use for official use that's not revenue, driven. For example, it could be park, it could be firefighting. These are legitimate use, but they are not accounted from the pricing perspective. There are some cities who started to do that as well. But anyway, we cover that as well. If there are people they use rainwater as harvesting times, type in their city, and so on. So we have this range of questions that we created. So from the forecast side, I'm going to pull here. Let's see. Where is? From the forecast side, I have, you still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So for the forecast side, for example, we went first, we identify, and I'll show you that we identify all the cities or nodes within the Nile Basin, but obviously we may identify more cities. For example, Tanzania, maybe we have like 20 cities. I don't know some, the numbers, or Uganda, but this national consultant, they cannot do for all those cities. So we prepare this, and they will go for that city, and then give us this information regarding, where is the country, town name, utility name, if there is a website address, type of water they applied, that utility is water, wastewater, stormwater, and so on. Population driven. Obviously, the population that came from our national consultant and our search as well, we try to verify with what we get from the World Bank and other sources. You can imagine that there is significant change even in estimating what is the population of a center as well. Where the source of water is coming in, what is the production? So by treatment, they will look at maximum production. The reason we went through this is to understand how much is the unaccounted water. So it's very important. That number could be anywhere between 30 to 40%, sometimes 50%. So when you forecast what people need, you need to account for that non-revenue water. That's where we want to get in. When they are in the residential sector, we ask them, more or less for that city, the number of connections, people with piping, some estimate, some of them yard pipes, some of them, that kind of that question, very, very important question we ask them. Most importantly, rate structure and price. This is because you will see that the number 2 we end up selecting for forecasting this is income, and price of water end up being the huge one. So we created also for all those utilities on those cities, the national consultant were collecting data for us. We asked them, how does the water rate structure looks like? Is it a flat fee, changing the US dollar that time? And then if there are different tiers, so we ask about that population that that utility thinks that it's serving, because it's important to get from the utilities themselves, that not just only from Google or from the World Bank. So that the idea was we want to really cross-check different data coming in by our literature review, as well as some other providers. So we had this. So they were contacting all these municipal water providers, and if they can talk about the income as well, low income, middle income, if they have anything in their master plan. For example, we spend a lot of time on reviewing and studying what they call the planning for each country. So you get that document for each country. They tell you, there are some information what they think will be in the future, and then where they are in terms of the socioeconomic status. If we can low income, middle income, high income, there is classification there. Water meters, if there is distribution, how long it's the distribution, residential water use, multifamily, non-residential, school, what type of non-residential. I mean, this took, by the way, it's like a 6 months work for them to do this as well. So we have this. We'll stop this one. So these are the demand nodes that we end up selecting, and but the data that I mentioned to you that is for subset of the city. Obviously, there is a limitation on what the national consultant can do in a given time. So we may put, many cities, but they end up giving us this detailed data, maybe for 2 or 3 cities, which is okay. I mean, we're just starting. This is the first time actually any type of work like this was done in the Nile Basin. So we appreciate the challenge, we appreciate the gap, we appreciate this kind of effort. So the big idea here is how can we put something as a baseline, as a starting, and then laying out the methodology later on. The Nile Basin Initiative or any of you individual with your research and so on, you can pick up this and then move forward. So given the time, so we have to select those as well. So these are the demand forecasts. We end up having a demand forecast for them. So at the end, what we decided is once we have seen all the data coming from the Nile Basin countries, I believe we have from 6 or 7 countries. So 10 countries was there, excluding Eritrea at that time. From the 10, I think we were able to get 6 or 7. So there's a couple of countries that Nile Basin Initiative couldn't execute this data collection. For those, we filled based on studies from their master plan in the country or any other information we can get from our literature review. So what we end up doing is, okay, let's come back and look at the total water use as a function of unit water use and population. Now, the little bit different than has been done in the past here is we didn't just assume a per capita. That's the tricky thing. Even there are cities here, they use a per capita, some number. If you ask them where that per capita number came, really, you don't get an answer. So we try to look at what does the per capita water it will depend on, what's driving it. So from all we saw is income. Now, we don't have income, even though we asked on those, you can see on the survey, we don't have income information on all those cities. So what we end up is as surrogate is the GDP per capita. That is translation. That's of course an assumption, need to be verified. That's another uncertainty on how you translate the GDP per capita to income. Obviously, there is price. So the price information we have, the technology factor, we have the demand management poll, and then some seasonal adjustment that differentiate different cities across the Nile Basin, because some places it's hot, some places not, and so on. But the major factor that makes them into, in a baseline will be income, which is reflected as the GDP per capita, and then the price. And this is also one of the things we pushed us to do this. In addition, there are many other Asian countries, you will see such type of approach. What pushed us is we were not able a time series data for all these cities. So what we got is a snapshot of 1 year. So in that case, we want to pool all the data across cities or villages or the demand node across the Nile Basin, and then we want to mix that. In that case, the GDP and the price will take care of that. So our price data, the GDP came obviously from World Bank. I should mention as well here, World Bank gives you a GDP for the entire country, but especially the upper Nile Basin countries, it's not the whole country which is in the Nile Basin. So that's another assumption. You are saying you have similar GDP per capita also reflected on some small town which is in the Nile Basin. So we know that. So there are some limitations. I will come back about our method. Price, was collected by individual country consultant, national consultant that I mentioned, or publicly available document from the utility, because we have the name of the utility. Some of them, by the way, I should mention, like Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, they have really nice information in the web regarding each of the utilities. Just takes us time to go to utility by utility, what is their rate and so on. There is also a nice here, the tariff network, as well as the African Development Bank, the database we used. We actually created a data processing and the database using SQL for the Nile Basin Initiative. Going forward, we populate what we have, and hopefully this could be something that can be repeated as they go forward. I will come back later on, the demand forecast. Because of this challenge, you actually need to do it. We do it here every year, actually. So we have, but somebody who is dedicated, I have the entire staff who's doing nothing but demand forecast. That's his full-time job, for example. So these are something you start, but you have to continue. So we created a database. This is just a screenshot of from that SQL database by country, location, population, to be updated. This is for Burundi, and you can see that we did this. So at the end, where do we end up? So this is an example. So primarily what we did is that across the different cities, we fit this curve related to GDP and price. Obviously, GDP, we looked at, for example, and when we were working this, it was 2019, 2020, we looked at the past 5 years. Some countries show a negative GDP. We don't expect a negative GDP to go forward. So what we have done is we give scenarios. So we give scenarios of how future growth of each of these countries moving forward. So what you can see here is for Burundi, and we have done many cities in each of these countries. So you can see, they are today 36, 37 liters per second per capita. This starting data came from the national consultant, the data that I showed you. So we have the population, we have how much was produced, the treatment plant, and so on. So to start, once we start and fit that regression line across the city, then we can do a scenario. So you can see, under high GDP growth could be high, and so on. So take-home message is easily the demand by 2040-50 will double than where we is. So here is a summary of liter per capita per day. You can see for each country we have three scenarios with a low, high, or median, low, medium, high, both from the GDP and also price. How does it look if they exercise price as well? So you have this range of per capita as well. So you can, for each one, I can pick here Egypt, for example, at a low scenario, you have 80, 90, could be, 130 per capita. The same thing, I guess Kenya is under high scenarios, they can even basically outsource more than any one of them. Ethiopian example here, you have under middle scenario, you have about 60 liters per capita, and then under a high GDP scenario, you may have like 85 or something like that, the liter per capita. So that's what we end up doing with different scenarios. We put everything in place. But the take-home message is here. There's a nice table that I want to show that we look at the population increase. Again, this data came from the World Bank as well, population by 2050. Obviously, there is also uncertainty in the population, how fast it grows and so on. We know that. Somebody who does this for a living, I know that uncertainty as well. But if you see, these are a multiplier, so basically percentage. So we are looking at Egypt growing by 77% more than where they were. You have Uganda at 172% more than where they are today. So on average, the entire Nile Basin expected to grow by 130% of the population. And then the demand, you will need, the increase in demand is 376%. So you have 130% increase population, bringing in a 376% increase in urban water demand. I think that's the biggest take home there. We looked at a scenario with the tech because I mentioned what I showed you earlier. This is tricky because now we are depending on the market, what kind of efficiency are there, and so on. So that's where we end up. We also look at the potential, and I'm almost finishing. I think at the time running out, I'm finishing that. We look at other local situation. You know, we cannot put a number, but based on our extensive research as well as input we got from the national consultant, you know, we give them some kind of qualitative / quantitative type of where we are in terms of which country needs more of water loss reduction. So for example, if you see more plus means that country could do more on that sector, where we could do more on water harvesting, where we could do on gray water reuse, because that offset demand as well, as you can see. So we also produced a policy briefing. I will give you later on a reference for this. I will pass this on the interest, but there are 4 big pointers I would like to conclude here is, you know, we need to adopt some robust long-term demand forecast. And this is a continual effort. It's not something you can do now, you stop and so on. The data needed, even with this, given how much time we spent and the national consultant collecting, if there is a way to really optimize, or how do you call, make it automatic for each country in a way to be able to provide this kind of information for the Nile Basin and in the database, I think it will be a great help for the entire basin, because as we say, you don't manage what you don't measure, and you don't know what it is, and demand forecast is certainly, that's one of the big challenge. Promoting water conservation, one of the things which shocked us as well is that there is significant amount of what's produced versus what's delivered. The non-revenue water is clear. It's not only in Nile Basin, this is an issue all over the world. So if we're given the limited resource, it's not unusual. What we see in the Nile Basin is not out of ordinary, but they try to invest on that as well to have more conservation and so on. Regularly updating the database. As I mentioned, we created this database fully. I didn't even go touch even 10% of what we have created. I hope that they would continue to do that and then regularly update that as well. As I said here, demand forecasting is really a challenge, so we continue to have that data as well. Discussion, and I think it's the last the last slide, limitation. So it's important in terms of what we saw is ability to pay, which is a GDP. So some of you may see the per capita number, said maybe it is high, maybe it's low. Remember, that's tied to a country's growth of GDP. That's what comes out. Price of water and technology are all important. Demand forecast is an ongoing effort. We use the pool data, as I said, because we have a special one shot for all the cities for 1 year. So the reason for that is that water use, it doesn't matter if I'm in a city in Nile Basin or here. It depends on what's my living standard. It's related with living standard. When people, they live, they need toilet to flush, they need certain amount to take a shower. So this number, we know them. So that's why the reason we use this pool data, in fact, is almost everywhere the demand trend are similar. What makes it different is maybe a seasonal weather variability, or if there is some cultural difference of using different water for different, but those are minor, except the weather portion. So that's why we were able to use the pool data to overcome this limitation. We use a unified per capita approach. It has its own limitation, even though in this case we tie it back to GDP and price. Most places, even they don't do that. when you use a unit per capita for everything, you are bundling the non-revenue water, you are bundling all different socio-demographic and type of users. So that's a growth. It's okay to start, but that's a challenge, a limitation. I mentioned at the beginning how we transfer. We couldn't get the data for income, so what we did is we start from GDP per capita for the country and transfer it to the city and the Nile Basin. The people who live within the Nile Basin will have the same GDP per capita in 2050 compared to the total country. That's a question as well, but we have to approximate. I think that's all I have, and thank you. I think I ran a little bit over time. We have reference here. So there are 3 reports you can see regarding the technique, and then the management, as well as the database. There are 3 documents that you can find them in the Nile Basin. There is a policy briefing as well. I should mention the 2 colleagues who has done the work with me as well here, and I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tirusew. It's a very good presentation, and helping us to have the perspective of the increasing water demand for drinking water. And I think, from the industrial side, I heard about for the cooling, for it could be power plants or so. And the industry also is expected to increase, and the demand will be increasing also, that I see. And the other thing is about the leaks. I was seeing my own city, Houston here. It's reported that they lost like 20 billion gallons. Can you imagine? About 75 billion liters. Or they say, I think it's 500 million bathtubs of water just lost, like the non-revenue. So the challenge is also in developed countries like the United States. And in Ethiopia also, Dr. Tirusew wrote a paper recently regarding the Addis Ababa water. And the leak is a lot, I think, reported. Maybe some people are saying 40% or 40%, and different places like Sudan or Egypt, about the waste of water due to pipe leaks also is there. So I don't want to, take the advantage of being the coordinator to ask questions, but these are the things that should be put in mind as well. And the challenge is big, and forecasting, as you said, is very, very, very difficult. And especially with the scarcity of data. And so I open now for question and answer. Anybody?
Yeah.
Okot, please. Professor Okot, is I see your hand there.
Yes. Thank you so much for such a detailed presentation. I'm not in the water business as such, but I'm learning a lot of things about this presentation. So I want to thank you, the founder of Friends, and the presenter. My question concerns the conservation of water. I see in my own area in northern Uganda, during the war and subsequent to after the war, people cut down trees to make firewood or to make charcoal for energy. And as a result, I'm sure the environment has been affected in tremendous ways, because without a lot of trees that used to be there, the amount of evaporation that go into the air to make clouds, to make rain, to replenish water is going to be affected. So if that's the case, I imagine that it happens in a lot of other places. In the program you talked about, is the conservation of environment part of the program so that it's coordinated Secondly, can that only be done within each country? I see there should be a need for international effort, not just in Ethiopia or Sudan or Uganda only, but all the countries involved in the area, including those which may not even be near the water, the River Nile, because what happens there may affect what happens along the Nile. So can you shed some light on that question? Thank you.
So can you address this, or you want?
Should I go ahead now, or I was waiting for others as well? I will address that.
Can you address this one in the meantime?
Sure. Okay. Okay. So but first, back to your non-revenue water or loss leak. I think that's why we call it, the way we get to this number here, and then the way we got it there as well is similar. So you go to the production, you go to the treatment plant, and then you get that agency, how much they build. So they have money collecting, and they know how much the billed water is. So typically that's how we in, and getting this information is not easy, but that's how we get. So that difference between the total production versus what gets into retail folks is what we call non-revenue. What we don't know, and some places here, there is a way to figure out which is which, and this non-revenue is bundled. The leakage, pipe breaks is one, even theft. There is a lot of, not just in Nile Basin, or I also was working with in Latin America, for example. I can give you a specific example in Cuenca, in Quito, in Ecuador. So theft is also there. So it's not just only the leak. And then you have legit non-revenue waters, like I mentioned, parks, firefighting, and so on. So the question is, how much of these is legit, and how much is just simply a legit versus the break and so on. Most cities, even here, they check, does it make sense to have new sources versus invest on these leaky or in these pipes. The city of Tampa investing $1 billion here next to us because of old pipe break and so on. $1 billion over the next 10 years. So it's for the people to figure out, what is cost effective to do it. New York, for example, there's like millions of gallons getting into, and still they have to fix it. They know this for 20 years. Now they are trying to address. If you have a lot of water, who cares about how much it goes as a loss? So it depends on how much do you want to invest on getting water through fixing the problem of the leakage versus can you get a new source? So that's the struggle. They do that. So going back to the Professor Okat question in terms of conservation, yes, conservation from the environmental side, that's where we should start. But we were talking more conservation here on the water supply perspective. And this is I want to bring, this is exciting for me to get a question like this. So here is the big question. Who finances conservation? So because the conservation is implemented in each country's jurisdiction and cities, they are the one who own the investment, who make, they have to finance. But the water saved is for everyone. So we have this issue as well. We have 6 customers, different cities, different counties, and then one place may invest their own money to fix their problem, and they use less water. Another one decided not to do that. At the end of the day, we have to provide water for all of them. So the key is what we end up doing is how can we incentivize and then also share the cost of conservation in all those countries. Maybe some people may not agree with me, but to me, the way to do it is just, you can't just tell one country, hey, go ahead and invest this a whole lot of water because it's your problem. They decided not to do it. At the end of the day, we will not save. So we have to figure out how to, like you said, very nicely, it could be international, but it could be Nile Basin level in this case. Everybody chips in. So we save a gallon here, it's a gallon available for our use. So that's a tricky one that needs to be figured out. How do you finance this when the actual loss is occurring in a specific country?
I would think that the way to approach that is through negotiation. All the countries or people involved should be at a table, they discuss and come to a consensus. Otherwise, today it may affect Uganda, tomorrow it may affect Sudan, and the next day maybe Ethiopia. So we have to convince everyone that it's in the interest of everybody to act together to make sure that the water is used or is available equitably. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Okot and Dr. Tirusew here. So let me take it from Dr. Isaias. I see a raised hand there, and I see a number. I don't know who the person is, but when you ask the question, please tell us who you are, so that we will know each other. So Dr. Isaias, oh, where did he go?
Yeah.
Ah, yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abata. This is my first time joining the Friends. I always tried to join, but because of the Sunday and so many others, family issues, I couldn't attend. But today I really, really appreciate, and I promise to join these Friends regularly in the future also. I love the presentations, Dr. Tirusew. It's very informative and also very technical issues. That's what I always engage in the water supply activities and the demand issues and supplying this water. My questions may be just to have a better clarification about the water reuse. I think in one of your slides, you touch, and the water reuse is very important issues. Nowadays, especially if you look at the recent research, in 2020, about 380 billion cubic meters of wastewaters are produced annually worldwide, which is a lot, which means enough to feed the Gerd reservoir in less than 3 months. Such huge amounts of wastewaters is just neglected in many parts of the developing country. Even developed country, globally, it's less than 5%. That's what water reuse is practicing. I know there are countries effectively utilizing in a sustainable way of these water demand management issues. So in your study, I appreciate the gray water reuse part, but I want to hear more. How is in our Nile basins? Is there any attempt to reuse the gray waters as a useful water resource and supply, at least for agricultural purpose? Because that's really very critical issues. I know some researchers conducted in Egypt, and because of having inefficient water management, 40 billion cubic meters of water is just considered as a loss, mainly in agricultural purpose, because of having different the canal issues, all the canals, and there are a lot of leakages. So I don't know to what extent you covered in your research, because this is very important. Water reuse can make more sustainable the water supply system. The second quick point is the last slide, I think, discussion and limitation. You are talking about ability to pay. That's one thing, but in my view, as willingness to pay also is very important issues, especially in Africa, because they assume the water is free. And whatsoever you provide with limitations, we did one research in Addis, near to Addis areas, and the willingness to pay is very less than 40%. Did you consider that also in your research? Thank you, Doc.
So please, Tirusew, Dr. Tirusew, take the notes and then you will answer together.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
that's good.
where is that number? I saw a number, not a name, and I gave the opportunity to ask.
It's me, the Mecca, if that's
Oh,
the
yes.
new number.
Demeka is a good friend, you know, there. He was trying to hide. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Abata. As usual, you are bringing the best brains on this conference, and we are learning a lot of things. As you know, I'm not in the hydrology engineering, but I'm so excited about what information is coming to really see the problem we have back home in Ethiopia and how we can tackle those kind of water supply issues. My question is a little bit different than the specific needs of what Dr. Tirusew was talking about. I'm trying to know the issue of water is going to be a high value commodity in our own lifetime, probably more than oil in the coming few decades. And I would like to know the fate of Ethiopian water consumption in spite of the fact that we are in the high plateaus of the region where water is going down in the Nile Basin. How do we tell the lower riparian countries like Egypt and Sudan that we should have unquestionable right to utilize our water, and yet they have to do their share of exploration of water, for instance, tapping into their aquifers and doing desalination of the ocean water for their future needs without mongering, threatening wars and political pressures in the southern portion of the African countries. I would like to really get your insight because probably it might be out of your realm of expertise, but I just want to bring this to the table so that we can have ideas in the future how to peacefully coexist with our friends around the Horn of Africa, North Africa, and the Middle East. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Demeka. Demeka is a well-known architect here in the United States, not far from where I live. So it's a very good question. So I think Sahar is raised her hand, and then Sahlo, one after the other. Please, can you ask the question? Sahar.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Abata, and very appreciate for this presentation, Dr. Tirusew. Really, I'm very glad to hear about the forecasting demand for the water, because at that time it is very important issue to know about the demand for water to be easy to plan how to manage the water, because every time the population is grows and the development for the countries is be increase for the industries and agriculture and so on. My questions, Dr. Tirusew, you mentioned is some factors impacting. How about the climate change? Why not considering in these factors? And the second question, the demand for water, forecasting for the demand just for surface water or also included the groundwater, because now in the Sudan, they have a lot of problem for the groundwater. Some areas in Sudan, there is no have any surface water. Just using the groundwater, you took a lot of water for the groundwater. They have a lack of some drop down for the groundwater. This is my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sahar. Sahar is in the water resources area and working in Sudan. a very good friend of our Friends Forum. Thank you. Sahlu is, I think, new. You showed us your face a moment ago, and we'd like to know you, Sahlu. You are muted, I think.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I'm really happy to be being here as a young expert and to hear all these experiences from all those senior participants. And one question which I want to ask Dr. Tirusew is, in most of the literatures, especially on the water, energy, food nexus, in order to save water, especially for the coming years, it might be for 2050s, for the developing countries, especially in Ethiopia, in Egypt, for the population growth is rapid and very high. And also with the urbanization and the other factors, there will be more water needed, especially for the domestic, also for the GDP, it will be different for the future projections. So in that case, for when we see most of the literatures in the water, energy, food nexus, they neglect the domestic water use. So they consider as domestic water use is insignificant when it's compared with the hydropower, the irrigation, and the other water use. So here, when I see here the some of the workers from here on the Nile Basin that you presented here now, I realized that there is a need to be incorporated as a demand management, especially on awareness creating for the people to save water at the end user, as like a home-based water management, and also something to be done for like fixing leaky systems and water use efficiency methods like upgrading infrastructure, and also optimally use the water for the domestic and water use. So what is your point of view here for future researchers to do a lot on taking into consideration this demand, the domestic and industrial water use, in addition to the hydropower and the irrigation water use, so as it will be a great contribution to enhance the water uses for the Nile Basin countries. So I want to hear your suggestions just for considering for further research and something to be involved on the demand management side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sahlu. It's good to know you. Are you in US or some other place?
I'm in Tirusew University. I'm a PhD candidate here.
Very nice. Nice to hear you. Please you email us, and then we will know each other. And I will also pass Dr. Tirusew to have. This is the purpose of this forum, is to have the networking opportunity, and for your research as well as for your work, we will be very glad to connect people. Yesterday, you know, we had a meeting, and one of our participants was saying, Dallala Toruno, Dallala, Medallal, you know that? You know, so one of my jobs is is that one. For those of you who don't know Amharic, I'm sorry, I will get, you know, the Google to translate and send it to you. But in the chat message, you know, I have my email address for everybody, and please connect. Is there any other person?
Thank you very much.
And okay, I see a hand there. OPPO, tell us your name. I think I know you, but let me see. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so sorry for joining you without the name. I'm Dr. Christopher Tombe, which from South Sudan.
Very good. Welcome. Yeah, I have lots of friends, you know, from South Sudan, and to have you here is very good. Did you get the information from Dr. John Ache?
Dr. John Ache? Yeah, I got the
okay, very good, very good. And I'm so glad, you know, to have you here. Please ask the question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Dr. Rabat. Yeah, so you invited me to the email, so I'm glad to be here. Okay, I just have maybe one is talking about the use of like in the case, for example, of seems not to, of the Nile it's not used actually, and then I don't know, maybe by that time, if a lot is done into the Nile, it means also is going to have a lot of the demand and is going to challenge the water that is going out of the Nile. And then the other issue is this reuse. If we talk of the cost, is it for the
Sorry.
Yeah.
Before you go there, I missed your first part because it was disconnected a little bit. Before you go to the reuse, could you repeat your first question, please?
Okay, thank you. What I'm saying is that here in South Sudan, since we have most of the water is not used because it's just running in the rivers. Yeah, we don't have dams, we don't have anything. Even agriculture is at minimal. So what I'm trying to say is that when we reach the 2050, if there is a lot of agriculture and industrial, it means a lot of water will go also out from the Nile. So this is what I'm trying to say. And then the second thing here is about the reuse. So in the cost-wise, how is it? Yeah, if we have some other alternatives. And then I didn't hear about some of these mechanisms also to store water, because here around in South Sudan, some parts, people store water in the hafirs or the large ponds where they collect rainwater, and then it is stored for use for people or animals. So I don't know if it is also there in other parts to collect the rainwater and to use it. And then here, of course, in South Sudan, the Nile have a large part which is called the Sud, whereby of President Biden, there were some issues about the dredging and not the dredging, because we have a lot of water, the surface, that is the water which is also having a lot to the environment, being the forests, even to the neighboring countries. So in case also there is another activities on the Nile is going to affect, like the building or reconstruction of the canals, because there were some issues to do with the Jungule Canal. For example, if it is dark, then a lot of water will also go. And if the Sud shrink, it means we are going also to have issues with the forests, because the evaporation will be less. Then therefore will lead to less rainfall. So I don't know if these things are done. Coming to the 2050, it means also there are going to be a lot of challenges in case there are no studies done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And your name, I should get your name, sir.
I'm called Dr. Christopher Tombe.
Oh yeah, Dr. Christopher. Yes, now I know.
Yeah.
Have your
Yeah.
Nice yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate the questions. Is there any other person? I know Musikar is there, but he put it in the chat message. So, and
Dr. Awata?
Yes. Okay. Yamana? Yeah. Oh yeah, yes, my friend. Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to say thank you very much for hosting this regular sessions. I mean, you do a fantastic job. And Dr. Tirusew, also, thank you for an excellent discussion and presentation. Quick question I had, maybe you can talk about it some other time, was you did mention about desalination work that you do when you were mentioning about the amount of water that power plants utilize. So I was wondering at some point if you get the opportunity to say a few words about the desalination opportunities that exist in the US, because I've heard about it, on the California coast, they use it. Wasn't aware that Florida also used it.
Thank you, Yamana. Is there any other person so that Dr. Tirusew can get all together? There are some questions through the chat message. I hope you saw those also. And I know that we have gone over 1 hour, but please address it. And we will continue to discuss also as
yeah, so good. So Dr. Abate, if you don't mind, please,
Yeah.
I saw the chat, but I'm trying to read and I'm running out of time. If you
Okay.
could ask me when I'm done with this one, just
Okay.
summarize them, but I did see the question. So let me start. This is great questions, very, very, very nice. First, we got a question about the reuse, and not only here within the Nile Basin, but also in the entire world. In terms of the percentage of reuse, it's very small. We use here, for example, even for developed country, the reuse it's a little bit low. There is few reasons. Reused as it translates into residential area, that means to offset residential water use for outdoor irrigation. By the way, I have it here, is that it's a little bit expensive because the pipe, it costs quite a bit, the pipe, not just the treatment, but the pipe that brings to individual homes for outdoor irrigation. That's what it discourages. So the number you see low in developed country is because it is really expensive. So they prefer to spend that maybe and use. So we are not able to even increase our reuse water for outdoor irrigation. But in the Nile Basin perspective, we're not thinking about the reuse to per se pipe it and bring it to all homes. No, that we're not thinking that would be expensive. But there are many places that you can use, even a huge, there's an example in New York as well. In the neighborhood, you can make a simple treatment and cover that, plant development as well for reuse for outdoor. You can do that. For irrigation, yes, you can use that too. We are using here too. But the key there is that to what level should be treated. Typically, a tertiary level treatment is needed. And then also reuse, you could use for plants like not to be eaten, should I say, if they are covered like not for tomato or cabbage, but for example, for orange, banana, things that like that should be okay because they don't have exposure. So there is a lot on reuse as well. That's the first question. I think the last person also mentioned about the reuse related to that. Yes, we should do more. The Nile Basin. Willingness to pay, yes. I think that's the term actually we use here. But in order to be able to pay, you have a willingness, you have to have the ability. That's why we end up using, if somebody has the ability to pay, and we didn't use that term, but I agree that's willingness to pay is a good frame as well. And then a little bit out earlier, how about to tell downstream countries in terms of to look for more water? True, it's a little bit out from these specific topics, since I work in the Nile Basin as well in other areas. Yes, I think it takes everyone's effort to be able to maximize the limited resource we have. So it's not just only one country doing this versus the other. Collectively, if you see that, I think I totally agree that everybody has to chime in on that. Sahar asked about the climate change impact on water use. We didn't consider, but we should. It's not an easy one. We started to look at here. So climate change impacting urban water use typically is when you have significant amount of outdoor water use. So there is really very involving. We start a research project with the University of Florida. We actually figured out, what is the outdoor space with the grass, people they use, and then if climate change, what will be the, what will be the needed water and so on. But for Nile Basin, as far as I can see, there is outdoor water use, but that's very small compared to overall indoor water use. So climate change impact coming from the supply side than more from the demand side. Sahalo, I think you mentioned regarding neglecting urban water studies. In many studies, you said it very right. I have seen 2 or 3 research that actually produced in journal nature. The last, I would not quote them, but people thinks to completely disregard the urban water demand. This is the whole idea. We wanted to bring this conference and to give a highlight. When we compare to irrigation, it is small, but it's not zero. We're talking about billions of gallons. So it is true. Unfortunately, most people, they tend to ignore in their Nile Basin assessment the urban industrial water use, because relatively speaking, it is smaller than agriculture. But we should, and that's exactly what I'm trying to bring awareness. So I think you touch a great point that I think the whole idea of having this is to bring that so we need for water supply. Most of these studies, they ignore that. They can't. We shouldn't. In terms of things are also, you mentioned surface water versus groundwater. In some of the alternative source, and if I specifically point my finger, like Egypt or Sudan and so on, some of them are groundwater. That the groundwater is linked to surface water also by hydrology, but we're talking about the entire system when we look at the demand. So the demand we forecast, you are asking whether this is specifically coming from the surface water to the groundwater. We are not, even though we collected data about the source, our forecast says that it comes from all of them. Surface water, groundwater. Surface and groundwater, they both are interconnected. They both are coming from the rainfall. If you look at it at that perspective, it is the bucket of what Nile Basin has. And that bucket, to me, is not just only surface water and the groundwater. So it's coming from that. Sahalu mentioned that one. And then regarding research related to urban water, there's a lot of area to start. So for example, forecasting demand for a city, as I said, more than a decade I have been doing this. There's a lot to be done, but always you are limited with the data. So I would say from the forecast side, get the data and come up with the cities, how much water they need by X year. It's a great research. Demand management is a huge one as well. Demand management, we mentioned a little bit. So in demand management as well, you can do even demand forecast in a different time scale. So there is a lot, and I will be happy to talk more on that. And then coming from Dr. I forgot, Dr. from South Sudan. I think I mentioned, yeah. So I think you mentioned regarding the water use and then the rainwater harvesting as well. So these are the things. So the rainwater harvesting we looked at, and what we did was where is the potential? So this tends to offset some of the need coming in from the limited resource as well to use. We are not using too much of the water, maybe that we will use later, you mentioned. So it's possible, yes. That's where I think the Nile Basin, some of the decision support tool, some of their planning. By the way, all our study that I showed you here gets into the Nile big picture decision support tool that they use to guide policy. And they have different buckets. So there is irrigation, there is other use. So the municipal and industrial water use that I showed you here was getting into their model. So hopefully that's how we address. This is for the whole region as well. You talked about the Sud effect. I think this is more from supply side. I happen to know hydrology as well. That's what I do. But that's, that's a whole lot of discussion on the hydrology side as well. That, how much of water is available, how much is environmental, and what ways we can get out. One thing I agree with you as well, and many others, is the demand for urban water is going to be, as I showed you, exponentially higher than where it is today. So we have to make sure that we include that, not just only irrigation that seems to be included. Desalination, I think the last one. Yeah, I will be happy to talk about a little bit about that, even though this is out of this. We are the first, the agency I work, the first who have this desalination facility in the North America. I'm talking North US and Canada as well. So we learn a lot. So I work day to day. It covers about 10% of our urban demand. Desalinate, we use that. The reason I mentioned with the power is that desalination needs quite a bit of water coming from the sea. Typically half of it when you take out the brine. What we did is we co-locate with a power plant, and that power plant pulls 1 billion gallon per day, and then we use a fraction of that, 50 million gallon, and then we put it back. The reason is then we don't impact the environment. We have this high dilution. Otherwise, you have to invest billions of dollars for disposal of this brine as well. So over the years, it has decreased quite a bit. I meant to write on desalinations, water supply. That's a long topic, but I can say in a summary, watching our facility for the last decade and a half, desalination has been very, very cheap comparatively to the others. The reason is the major investment there is electricity. And if you are able to produce electricity in a cheap way, whether it's alternative energy like solar and others, it makes it easier. Also, I want to bring to your attention desalination. It doesn't have to be from the ocean. So in Florida, we have a lot of reverse osmosis type. That's the same technology for using salty water. So you can go down, 1,000 feet there. You have a lot of high salt water. You can treat the same technology. In fact, it's cheaper than the sea. So when we talk about desalination technology, not just from the sea, but any salty water that we can get deep into the aquifer as well. So I think that's all I have. And then if you, Dr. Abata, please summarize a couple of questions that I will answer them.
Thank you again, Tirusew, for addressing the questions and also for the nice presentation. Of course, it's thought-provoking. And let me summarize a few of the questions. I think I captured all. And one is from Musikar. He is a journalist, and he preferred, to put his question in the chat message. And the other one is Awan. Their questions are very similar regarding an agreement in the Nile Basin in the use of the water. And the other question is by Dr. Wandiye. Do you have data on the supply side of regarding the water sources, or if it's wetlands and if it is other sources because of climate change, it's being lower and lower, the raw water that's available. And these are the questions that are posed through the chat. But let me use this opportunity regarding the wetlands. Dr. Christopher, in this forum, we invited a speaker on the Sud, because there is a project which stopped actually by Egypt trying to get the Sud water drained and adding it to the White Nile. And the advantage, the disadvantage, and the environmental impacts are there, and we can discuss. And I can make it available for you, the presentation. And go ahead, Dr. Tirusew, please.
Yeah, okay. These are great questions regarding in terms of the negotiation, and in Nile Basin, this should be in 1,000%, because I think what you're looking at is that what is the water needed for each country. So water need is not just only irrigation. It's not only for power generation. It's a consumptive use of urban and municipal use as well. So one of the whole reason we wanted to do this work as well is to give light that there is the urban and industrial water need, consumptive water need. Some of them could be offset, as I said, with other sources, but definitely. So again, this has to be bundled. What are the minimum security? When we talk about people security, we talk about food security, which is irrigation. And then water security is also at the forefront. definitely, when we look at the demand for water, we are looking at all of them. So yes, my answer is that demand. The supply side question we have is basically for this project, the sources from where they are coming. We have those polls from each countries, but not really how much in terms of different sources. Like I think Sahar mentioned about the groundwater. So how much is coming from the groundwater, how much coming from the surface water? We don't have that really identified in terms of from the supply side. It's more aggregated how much each cities in that Nile Basin country are using.
Thank you very much. Yes, I know there is much enthusiasm, and I know that the time is a constraint here, a limit. And thank you very much, everybody. By the way, I see a face which disappeared for a long time. Magdalawit, how are you, Magdalawit?
I'm very well, thank you, Dr. Rawata. Yeah, I haven't been able to attend for a very long time, but Dr. Tirusew, you did very well. I mean, this feeds directly into my work, so I'm glad this information is already out there. Thank you very much.
Yes, it is there. And also, you know, incidentally, regarding the water agreement, the necessity of agreeing in the use of the Nile, the natural resources, the water use. I'm sure, you know, most of you are aware of the cooperative framework agreement. This is an agreement that was tried to bring together the riparian countries and in the reasonable and equitable use of water. But unfortunately, only 4 countries, it seems, currently who ratified it. To make it as acceptable law, a binding law, it needs about 6. So South Sudan is showing lots of interest in this, and also there are countries which signed but didn't ratify it, like Kenya and Burundi. And I believe that this is a very good way of bringing countries together in planning also. In the place where I live, for example, here in Houston, they are thinking ahead, and they are having a water treatment plant, which is to raise the capacity from 80 million gallons per day to 400 million gallons. But here we have a problem of subsidence. And they want to limit the groundwater to 20%, 2080 they call it. Fortunately, I was involved in that when I was in the consulting business. I'm now in the academia, and yes, an agreement should be there. And I would like to thank Magdalawit here publicly regarding the input she had on a paper that I just wrote it, and some of the points, and that she was not. Okot notes, Professor Okot notes about it. It is published on the Nile Journal. By the way, I want to introduce you Nile Journal. On some of the points, she was not, I think, free to have those points there, if you remember from our back and forth. But I would like to appreciate you for the information that you have given me. And if you want to read the paper, go to nilejournal.net.
Dr. Rawata, may I say something?
Yes, please say.
On the topic of the SUJ, there's actually a conference that FIU, Florida International University, in collaboration with Dr. Tag, the presenter, also the person who presented on the SUD a couple of presentations ago here. We are organizing a conference on climate change adaptations as it relates to the SUD and the Nile. So it's a free conference. It's going to be online. Registration is for free. I have put the link to the conference in the chat. So if you're interested, please register. The conference is going to be in March between March 20 and 21. And if possible, I mean, abstract submissions are already done, but please, if you're interested, because I think I heard a question about the SUD. So if you're interested in the SUD and how it relates to the Nile and climate change and adaptations, feel free to register and attend that conference. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Magdalawit. You know, I encourage everybody to register, and I will be the first one, I think, you know, to register. I didn't know about it. I used to get, by the way, some communication from FIU, Florida Institute of International University, but I don't know whether you stopped working or you excluded.
No, so yeah, we had the monthly Nile Talk forums, which yeah, which haven't been happening for a while now, but they will resume soon, so probably that's why.
Okay, okay. And thank you.
Dr. Abate.
Yes, Professor Akko.
If you have time, I want to ask one question.
Dr. Tirusew, do you have a time?
If not, I will send him the question.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that will be better because the time
Okay.
is gone
Okay.
a little bit, and we'll have it.
I'll make it 2 questions since I can send it.
No, make it 3 or 4, you know.
Okay.
Give him
No
a
problem.
good homework there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make him busy. Okay, thank you, everybody. You know, I see lots of people who are new here, and I appreciate, and my email address is there. I will send you that the link or the PDF file also, for that matter, regarding the efforts in getting the agreement to go through. And I appreciate everybody. I could not name everyone, but it's my heartfelt appreciation. By the way, Professor Mondosia from Tanzania, who was involved in the cooperative framework agreement from the beginning, and Dr. Ahmed from Sudan also presented here on this forum on CFA. It's the information is available for everyone. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Abate.
Okay,
Thank
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 you.
you very much.